The second of the major things that we just haven't quite got right, and that is at the root of what is causing the challenges in our life, is this question of who am I? There's so many different ways this can be talked about. But in practical terms, I want to make this so that you can get your hands on it and begin to work with it. So who am I is a question that comes up for all of us, like in adolescence, right? We're searching for our sense of identity and who am I and where do I fit in is kind of a thing. And then as we grow up, we're looking for that sense of what's really authentic to me, where do I fit in and what's my work? And then some of us have this driving urge to fulfill our mission or fulfill our purpose. Who am I in all of these ways? However, for here in the Sovereign Quest, I want to make some things more tangible, make this question more practical, how we're making sense of our lives, making sense of what's happening and taking action in the world that are misattributing who we are, and that misattribution gets in the way. The answering of that question in ways that are happening unconsciously to us that we can't see, but are infusing and infecting everything, how we see what's happening, how we make sense of it, and how we act in the world. So we refer to these things as filters. They filter our experience, placing huge limitations in our experience of life. So, who am I? So in this work, what I'm going to suggest is a fundamental principle to work with. Many of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you, what I'm sharing with you is the truth. I don't see it as the truth of existence or the truth about reality. I think that there's tremendous truth in it, in that it helps us very practically and tangibly to make our own way, finding our own ability to discern truth for ourselves. I'm very pragmatic in how I approach this work. What I'm teaching, in essence, is a pragmatic, practical spirituality to help you to find your own inner sense, your own GPS navigational system, your own ability to make sense of life for yourself. Not to take on from out here, from me or anybody else, what's true. But I'm providing to you tools to help you navigate through unhooking yourself from all of these structures inside you as a human being that keep you from being able to actually be in touch with your own experience, to actually make sense of your own experience, and to be able to take action that is based on your own direct assessment of what is right for you in that moment. This is what I call sovereignty. Sovranty. It's an antiquated spelling of the word, and I use it because I want to differentiate this from all of the other ways that people speak about sovereignty out there. I'm speaking about a sovereignty that has nothing whatsoever to do with anybody else except for you. Sovereignty in and of yourself, being able to discern for yourself, using all of the inputs that life gives you from other people's situations, circumstances, but coming inside and being so in touch with your own experience in here, so in touch with yourself, and being able to discern for yourself what is right for you in any given moment, and to take action from that place. So who am I? In the end, at least for our purposes here, I'd say you are that sovereign self. However, in order to actually live that, actually have that be where you're living from inside yourself, there is so much in the way of being able to live from that place. And most of it is happening outside of our ability to directly perceive it. This results from the filters of conditioning, habit, and unresolved trauma. The fact that most of what we're doing, 90 to 95% of what we do as human beings all day long, happens in our unconscious, we are not aware of the perceptions we're having, of the way we're making sense out of it, how we're choosing to make decisions, and how we're taking action is happening outside of our ability to be aware of it. Now, many of those things, thank God it's happening. Otherwise, we'd have to think about every damn thing we do all day long, and we wouldn't be able to do it. However, there's many things that are happening in there that are colored dramatically by unresolved woundedness, trauma from our pasts, and the conditioning, the ways of seeing, the ways of understanding, and the ways of acting in the world that have been given to us over time. We don't necessarily realize there are other options. Thank goodness I am going to declare here and ask if you can start to play with this idea that maybe it's possible, that there is already within us what I'm calling a sovereign self. Even though we're operating mostly through pre-programmed, conditioned ways of seeing, making sense of, relating to, and acting in the world, that behind all of that is this sovereign self, the ability to completely experience life without those filters, to make sense of it without the programming and the conditioning and the trauma, and to act from a self-determined place inside of us into the world. That exists already. One begins to see for oneself directly, oh my God, there's so much more in here that nobody taught me, but that seems to be able to be unleashed from inside of me as I notice the ways I'm just operating out of conditioned behavior and traumatic responses and dealing with them at the root and removing them from my experience. There's something already there that is more confident, that sees more directly, that has skills and talents and abilities that were not taught to me. It's right there. So who am I? Starting with number one here is a sovereign self, what I call a sovereign self in the way that I've just defined it for you. And you will find that you'll be practicing it as you're doing the stop practice. Great. So the second part of this discussion, I want to talk about parts. We are parts. And to be thinking about ourselves as parts. There's this wounded part. There's this angry part. There's this sad part. There's this part that thinks it's not possible. And to just think of ourselves in parts. It's simply to understand that most of the time we're relating to ourselves through the filters of the beliefs that are activated in us and the way we're feeling. And that for that bit of time, whether it's a minute or an hour or days or years, we're fundamentally believing that we are that. For example, that defeated self that feels like it has no energy and isn't capable. We just believe that's who I am. And then on that day or that hour when our mood is uplifted, then we feel like that's the truth of who we are. And if we can begin to relate to, okay, we have these different experiences that come and go, and very habitually we relate to ourselves, mostly without even being aware of it, that is who I am. Because we're going to work to free ourselves from that very programmed way of relating to ourselves. Feel this way, that's who I am. Think this way, that's who I am. And we're not even aware of the fact that in the course of a day, depending on what's going on, we may unconsciously think we're like 10 different people. Because again, we're very unconsciously relating to, I feel this way, I am that. I think this way, I am that. It's very habitual, very unconscious. And we want to find more and more that sovereign self, that self that can have all of that stuff coming and going Recognize that it's part of the experience. Use the challenge of whatever's coming up to notice, hey, this is here to help me. Let me do something here, because when I attend to it as it's here to help me, I can free myself from something that's running me all the time. And more we live as that sovereign self, that completely self-contained ability to just simply perceive and determine for ourselves, not through the conditioning, not through the trauma, not through the current activated state of our body, but outside of all that, can determine for itself what this is, what it means, what, if anything, to do about it, how to respond to it. So for those that have done any kind of meditation in life, I'm speaking about operating from that part of us that is the observer of whatever happens. Please just come into this world for the next 40 days and operate from inside of this way of putting this all together. Because whatever that practice was, it gave you what it gave you. It's continuing to give you what it gives you. But I'm going to invite you to see it in maybe some new ways that can unlock additional benefit for you. So who am I? Point number 2 is that unconsciously, most of the time, I am relating to who I am based on how I happen to be feeling, what I happen to be thinking. And that is based on the conditioning, the unresolved trauma that happens to be active in my experience at any given moment. So point number 3, who am I? One of the major aspects of who we each are, I have given the name of the chooser to. Outside of whatever we're thinking, whatever we're feeling, whatever we're doing, outside of all of that, we have the capacity inside of us to choose where to put our attention, to choose what to think, to choose what action to take. It's the function of will in us, but I like the chooser. There is an aspect of us that I call the chooser. And in the Sovereign Quest, all of the work that we're doing here is to assist you to be able to identify more and more clearly and begin to make use of more and more reliably your ability to choose. Why is that? Because of number 4, who am I? Another major part of who we are, of what we're dealing with, is something I call the automatic pilot. And it involves all of the conditioning, all of the things that happen inside of us just automatically. And we're not even aware of them most of the time. What lives in this realm are the things that happen to us and for us very habitually that help us, but also the kinds of things that likely brought you to the Sovereign Quest, the things that just happen of their own accord seemingly that create the problems, the challenges, the difficulties in your life. And I call that whole realm automatic pilot. So, number 3, the chooser is really important in relationship to number 4, the automatic pilot. Because automatic pilot just happens, and we're not even aware we're doing it most of the time. For example, something happens out there or something happens inside of me. I feel something, I'm not even aware I'm feeling it. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, I can't. Automatic pilot comes up and takes over that particular belief. That whole mechanism of doing this is automatic pilot. It comes up and colors how we're understanding, how we're perceiving, how we're making sense of, and how we're choosing to act in the world. It's coloring all of that. It's the filters. So when automatic pilot takes over, we are unconsciously giving the chooser over to it. we've unconsciously given over our choice of what to do to this automatic pilot behavior. And these kinds of things, when they're very intense and strong and built into us, I feel like I don't have a choice. I feel like I don't have a choice. So it's important to begin to find in us the chooser and to strengthen it. So that when this starts to happen, chooser says, nope, not right now. And keeps the sovereign self free to experience life, to make sense of life, to choose what action to take. This is the core of what the Sovereign Quest is about, is to begin to notice little by little the ways in which automatic pilot, fueled by program beliefs, conditioned beliefs, the effects of unresolved trauma from the past, come up to filter, and then we begin to experience life through it. And when we notice that that's happening, the chooser kicks in and says, nope, not right now. And then our best version possible at the moment of that sovereign self is then free. This is what the stop practice will be training into you, is the ability to do that. And it's important to do it daily, 3 times a day, because you are programming something into your muscles and nervous system. And you're tying it to this simple gesture. So that in the future, when you notice this is happening, and do this, you simply just start to rub your fingers together to do that anchor gesture. And because you programmed it into you, you will automatically go through the rest of it and free the sovereign self and your ability to actually be present in your life, to actually perceive what's going on without the effects of what has been limiting you, without relating to it as some problem that you got to get yourself out from under, and just be here free. And you see over and over how often who you think you are is these things. It's in our language. I'm not confident. I'm this. I'm not that, etc. Most of that is program beliefs that have played themselves out over time and seem to be real. But as you learn to do this and you keep doing it, and it becomes how you're living your life all day long. This is why consistency over time builds this into you, that you can continue on beyond the 40 days and the benefits keep increasing, expanding. You will see exactly what I was saying earlier is, oh my gosh, as I keep doing this, there's more already inside of me that I didn't know was there that's able to come forward. The sovereign self seems to be a mystery without end to explore the capacities in it. So, welcome to the journey of exploring who am I in ways that may be new. They're ways that are very concrete, day-to-day, practical, but have implications which are not limited to that. Life becomes a very interesting exploration of who am I, what am I doing here, and what's possible for me in this life. Let's move on.